The Rakaia River reaches deep into the heart of Ka Tiritiri o Te Moana, the Southern Alps. Its headwaters are remote and hard to reach. As such, very few people ever visit this incredible place. My plan? To spend 5 days in the ice-cold depths of winter photographing the meltwater lakes of the Lyell and Ramsay, New Zealand's northernmost valley glaciers. Normally, getting there involves a 30-kilometre hike up the valley with multiple unbridged river crossings. Luckily for me, a little help was at hand. The floor of the Rakaia Valley is a vast plain of gravel, born of thousands of years of mountain erosion carried and shaped by the braiding river. The gravel doesn't make for the most comfortable ride, but it's definitely fun. On the first day, I'd hitch a ride all the way up to Raishik Hut, about as far as you'd ever want to take a four-wheel drive. From there, daylight permitting, I had a 2 to 3 hour hike to reach Lyell Hut, my home for the next 4 nights. That would give me plenty of time to explore and photograph before walking every single one of the 30 kilometres back down the valley. Even though that return hike was still 4 days away, a nagging worry was already in my mind. Not so much for the distance, but because snow was in the forecast, and that meant 2 things. First, travel would become slower and a lot more dangerous. Second, if that snow started to melt, the river would rise, and I could get trapped on the wrong side of the valley. But for now, the weather was stunning and I was excited for the journey ahead. Just after 2 PM, I was dropped off at Raishik Hut. From here on out, I was on my own. It was midwinter, so the sun would set in less than 3 hours, just enough time I hoped to make it to Lyell Hut before dark. Around an hour in I crossed Raishik Stream with the towering Southern Alps looming ever closer, and the mountain shadows growing ever longer. Soon the valley tightened up with the Rakaia River pushing hard against the true right bank, and that's where I had some decisions to make. Back when I did this walk in 2022, the topo map showed a track around the base of Mains Knob, avoiding the alternative of crossing the swing bridge and then fording the river just before the hut. Initially I walked towards the swing bridge, hoping to find the track somewhere on the hillside above. But after an hour of scrambling around steep rockfall and dense bush, it became clear the track had long since overgrown and was nowhere to be found. The last option was to climb up and over Mains Knob, but after around 20 minutes of climbing the terrain got very icy, and I realised I didn't have enough daylight left to make such a slow and perilous journey. So that left the option of crossing the swing bridge, walking about an hour upstream, and hoping the ice-cold river was not only low enough to cross, but there'd be enough light to make it safe. My better judgment took hold. I turned around and walked back to where I'd begun, Raishik Hut. Tomorrow I'll try again. Day 2 dawned with a change in the air. No significant snow was forecast, but the energy in the atmosphere was palpable. I retraced my steps across Raishik Stream and had another look at Mains Knob, but once again the icy conditions put me off. Over the swing bridge I went. After turning into the Lyell Valley, I'd eventually need to find a place to get back across the river and reach the hut. I found a wide section where the water looked calmer and shallower, though the milky colour made it hard to judge its depth. Turned out to be no more than knee deep, but it sure was bracing, fresh from the Lyell Glacier. The weather was closing in, so I kept moving. Tomorrow's forecast looked a lot better, so photography could wait. Thankfully, the hut was the perfect place to hunker down and keep warm by the fire. I set my alarm early, figuring it would only take me around 30 minutes to reach Lowell Lake for sunrise. Before I even got halfway, the alpenglow was already lighting the peaks on fire. Soon I was standing in a place I dreamed about for years, seeing it with my own eyes, camera in hand. I was one happy photographer. I couldn't have asked for much better. By now my fingers and toes were well and truly numb, so it was back down the valley for some lunch and to warm up in the sun. Lowell Hut is another great facility owned by the Canterbury Mountaineering Club. Before visiting, booking and payment is required via the CMC website. The original hut was built in 1931 and has been upgraded a few times over the years. Before helicopters, everything had to be hauled in by foot or horse. The modern version, completed just a few months before I arrived, is well insulated and kitted out with all the mod cons, including solar-powered lighting and a mountain radio. That afternoon, I gave Mains Knob one more try, but once again, the snow and ice turned me back. In the evening, I returned to Lowell Lake to shoot under clear skies and bone-chilling conditions. The stillness, the silence, knowing there's no other person for many, many miles in any direction, it's truly something else.
Moving to the brief mountain forecast now for Thursday. Occasional rain with snow to 800 metres in the far south. Strong or gale.
The good weather was on its way out, but the turn to the northwest would also mean the sunrise conditions would probably be epic. I made sure I was out the door early. go. Starting tonight, heavy snow was in the forecast. Originally, I planned to spend one more night at Lyle Hut, but 30 kilometres in a blizzard tomorrow, plus rising river levels, too risky. Best to get some miles under my feet. I signed the hut box and set off just after 11 AM. Made my way back down to the shallow crossing point. No chance of keeping my boots dry, but it didn't really matter as there were several more crossings to come. Leaving the Lyle Valley behind, I climbed across a moraine field towards Ramsey Lake, with the impressive Mount Whitcomb rising behind it. Hard to believe, but just over 150 years ago, this whole area was buried under ice. Back then, the Ramsey and Lyle glaciers nearly met each other, an incredible reminder of how much the landscape has changed since then. Being in a more open valley, Ramsey Lake wasn't as frozen as the Lyle, but a thin sheet of ice coated most of its surface. After taking some photos and grabbing a quick bite to eat, I moved on. The lake's outlet was low, making for an easy crossing. Endless gravel awaited. Not the most exciting terrain, but at the same time I was thankful to make fast progress. Around 7 kilometres into my day, I reached Laupa Bivvy, a tiny two-person shelter tucked at the mouth of Laupa Stream. From here, Whitcomb Pass leads to the west coast, and one of the most rugged multi-day treks in the country. Continuing down valley, I crossed a few more tributaries and clambered over rocks where the river pressed close. Eventually, grassy flats became more dominant, making the walking even easier. 5 hours after leaving Lyle Hut, I reached my destination for the night. And just in time, as a chill was in the air and the sky had that look of snow being near. After dinner, I crawled into my sleeping bag and listened out for snowfall. The night was eerily quiet. I wondered what the morning would bring. Nothing for it but to put on wet socks, pack up and launch into it. Moving down valley yesterday was the right call, but I still had 18 kilometres ahead and conditions weren't easing up. The fear of rising rivers and getting stranded kept me moving fast. Even though I felt like I was flying, the landscape barely seemed to change. Every kilometre dragged. I kept checking my GPS just to make sure I wasn't going backwards. Eventually I reached the 4-wheel drive track, where just 5 days ago travel had been so much easier. It was still slow and tough going, but I stayed motivated and in good spirits. After 5 hours, the skies started to lift along with my hopes the Rakaia would be crossable. The first channel was okay. The second, a little more nerve-wracking. The final 2 channels were easy enough. And then, there it was. Not quite the most beautiful thing I'd seen in the last 5 days, but pretty close. My car. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you on the next adventure.